Hello, everybody. This is episode 301, and my guests today are Jamie Robinson and Jessica Pope Robinson. The husband and wife team have been regular listeners to the Recovery After Stroke podcast and reached out recently to join me on the show to share their respective stroke stories after Jamie experienced a brain stem stroke aged 49. Jamie and Jessica Robinson, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you
Nice
for
to be
having us.
here.
Lovely to meet you both. I'm just trying to work out which way to go with this particular interview, but let's start with Jamie. Jamie, tell me a little bit about what happened to you.
Well, I think it was November 5th of 2022. I woke up in the middle of the night, about 5 o'clock in the morning, with a severe leg cramp.
Move a
And
bit
I wound
closer.
up,
Move a bit
sorry,
closer. Go for
I
it.
woke up. I woke up with severe leg cramp and wound up having a stroke in the process. So she called 911, and a few months later, I woke up in the hospital.
Wow. Okay. So you recall having a leg cramp. Is that what woke you?
Well, that's what she says.
So you
I
don't
don't
know.
remember anything.
Do you know that you were having a stroke? Do you know anything?
No, I just know that I was getting ready to get up for the morning, get ready to go to work. And then I woke up a few months later in the hospital.
Talk about dramatic. How was that for you, Jessica? You woke up. Was he looking like he was waking up? How was he acting?
No, it was about 20 minutes before his alarm would go off, about 5:30 in the morning, and I was dead asleep, and he screamed the weirdest scream I've ever heard. He screamed cramp, but it was just he screamed it in this kind of just horrible way, and I woke up and turned on the light and looked at him, and I kept yelling at him to wake up, and he wasn't waking up. And he was shaking violently and he had kind of foam coming out of his mouth. And I called 911 as I was kind of screaming at him the whole time. And then I just kept screaming at him to wake up while we were waiting for the ambulance to get here.
Uh-huh. Was it helping the was yours trying to get him aroused? Was it working? Was it doing anything?
It wasn't doing anything at all.
How long did it take for emergency services to arrive?
About 10 minutes.
Okay. So then there's a whole bunch of time. You go, emergency services arrive, and then from there, do you guys end up in hospital really quickly? Is it near home? Where is that?
Yes, the hospital is about 5 minutes from our house, actually. So they were they were there pretty quickly, but actually I was trying to get my keys and all that kind of stuff and let our daughter know that we were leaving. And when I got outside, the ambulance had just pulled away, which to me seemed odd because it seemed like it had taken a long time for them to leave. But now I know that it was because they were intubating him in the ambulance before they
Wow.
left.
Okay, so they're going through the whole process. Already his respiratory system is not working properly. Things are going horribly wrong, and
Right.
you're waiting, thinking, "Well, what's going on? What are they doing? Why aren't they
Mhm.
moving?"
Right.
Okay, that's pretty normal because what you're thinking is like just the hospital is where you need to be, and then they'll fix it.
Right.
Everything
Right.
everything will be fine. So you guys arrive to the hospital, and then
Mhm.
what happens then? How do they keep you in the loop? How are you being communicated with? What happens?
So he has been taken back. I'm still in the waiting room for about 10 minutes. Then they come out and they get me. He's in a room in the ER with probably, I don't know, probably 15 people in it. I couldn't even fit in it. I sat on a chair outside the waiting room. Um, and this lady who it turns out was the chaplain. I did not know that. She did not introduce herself as that. was sitting next to me the whole time with a box of Kleenex. And she kind of, when they moved him up to do surgery and things, she sort of followed, and my brain just couldn't quite grasp what was going on. And I kept thinking, well, I don't think this is good that this woman won't leave me alone. I mean, she's very nice, but I just kept thinking that I've been in the hospital many times and this has never happened before.
We'll be back with my guest in just a minute, but first, let me tell you about my new book about stroke recovery. It's titled The Unexpected Way That a Stroke Became the Best Thing That Happened: 10 Tools for Recovery and Personal Transformation. Within its pages, you'll discover the journeys of 10 remarkable stroke survivors. Each story illustrates how, through resilience and perseverance, they turned their stroke experience into a catalyst for profound personal growth and transformation. This book delves into various aspects of recovery, including nutrition, sleep, exercise, in managing the emotional aftermath of a stroke, as well as providing invaluable tips and tools for maintaining mental well-being. To learn more, visit recoveryafterstroke.com/book. And if you're eager to get your hands on a copy, simply search my name, Bill Gassiamis, on Amazon.com.
So,
You just think she's a weirdo. Admit it.
yeah.
Okay. So she's the chaplain. You find out later, but she's just trying to
Yes.
make sure you've got somebody
She's
next
just,
to you the whole time.
yes, exactly. So I called one of our older kids who worked night times, and he got off about 7. And at this point, it was about 7. And I let him know what was going on. And he came to the hospital with me. And then at this point, they had figured out that it was a blood clot. And it was, at this point, I didn't know where it was located, but they just told me he had a stroke and it was a blood clot. And he had had a mini stroke in 2020, and they had put him on blood thinners. Because he was on those blood thinners, they couldn't do the drug to break up the clot. So they had to take him up and do surgery. So we went and sat in the waiting room up there, my son and I and his girlfriend. And the doctor came in and said they were going to go back and do surgery. And they told me that it was, his exact words were that it was in a very bad spot in the back of his brain. And it turned out it was on his brainstem.
And what surgery did they do? How did they retrieve that?
That's a great question. I'm not exactly sure. I know they did, like, I think where they went up the leg and up there, and they were not able to get all of it, but they got most of it. And then when the doctor came in the waiting room, he said that they had saved as much of his brain as they could, which I did not think was a very good sentence. So,
Although they're trying to tell you we've managed to save some of it, and
yeah,
that's a good outcome, you're going, that means there's probably a lot that hasn't been saved.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So all of this happened. It sounds like this is all the first 24 hours.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then he comes out of surgery and he's taken to, is it the ICU? Where does he go first?
He is in the ICU. He was in the ICU for about 25 days.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Now I've had the difficult task of being in the ICU with a friend of mine whose daughter had a brain hemorrhage, and it's not
mhm.
fun because of the condition of the person that you're seeing is not responsive. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on there. There's machines everywhere. It's just an intense place, but it's a really special place as well, because if you're going to be unwell from something like this, it's the best place to be in for
Absolutely.
your potential recovery. And I just want to go I just want to go back to Jamie for a second. In the first 25 days, do you have any recollection whatsoever? Is there any time where you felt maybe you saw the lights, as in the lights of the room, not the other ones? Um, did you have any idea that you were in hospital, something was going on?
Well, it was so weird because I could hear conversations that were going on around me. I could follow what was happening in other people's lives, but it just kind of blended into the dream that I was having. Because for the whole time I was in ICU, I was unconscious as far as I knew, and I was having a dream where I was living a whole nother life. And I went day by day. I listened to the stories that other people told. Listened to stories about my mom needing internet, and it just all blended in.
Okay, so you had some kind of awareness of conversations happening around you, people turning up, and things getting done, and things being happening around you.
Yeah,
Um, Jessica, were you guys telling him the stories of what his mum needed and all that type of stuff?
No, his mom would just be like in the room telling me what was going on because she just moved into a house and
Uh,
we're just having kind of conversations. And apparently he heard them.
yeah, yeah. Like they didn't say anything nasty, did they?
no, there's
Well, we know better from now on, never to do that in ICU if we're ever visiting
Right.
anybody. Okay, so it kind of blends all in. There's no real understanding of how long you're in there, of really what's going on, what day it is. You just know that you're somewhere else and something is happening around you, and you're able to track it. Do you have any concerns? Do you feel any feelings? Are you worried? Is there any other of that stuff going on, or is it just not there?
it's really not there. Like I said, during the whole time that I thought I was unconscious, I was having a dream where I was living another reality. But every she says that every now and then I came to and communicated somehow, but I don't remember any of it.
Yeah.
He really was never unconscious after he got into the ICU. Like when I got in there to visit him, he was awake, which they had told me when they came to the waiting room that the next 24 hours were key and that he hoped he woke up. And by the time I got into the ICU, he was awake. His eyes were open. He was able to follow basic, like, squeeze my hand, wiggle your toes kind of directions. His left side was affected, so that wasn't as good as the right side, but he was able to follow those sort of directions. So he was never really unconscious. I mean, he was intubated still. He was intubated for a very long time. So they definitely had him on medication
Sedated.
to make him comfortable.
Okay. Okay. So it's important, of course, after the surgery to work out that he's come good and that there's Jamie's there, and things are working amongst other things that are not. But then at the same time, to allow for the situation to continue and the process of recovery to continue to occur, he was intubated so that he didn't have to worry about doing things like breathing, etc. And then he was sedated to just keep him
Hmm.
comfortable and keep him healing while it was then when long enough time passed so that he can be um, sort of woken back up completely.
Right. So they had him intubated for just the first day, I think, and then they took the tubes out, and he had about 24 hours without them. But he could breathe on his own, but he couldn't really cough. So fluid was building up. He was very, very weak, and so his coughs were very, very, very weak, and he just couldn't keep the fluid down. So they went ahead and put the tubes back in. And then he was intubated for another about 2 weeks. And then they told me that they were going to have to, they took the tubes out again and tried it for another 24 hours, and he couldn't not do it. And they told me they were going to have to put in a trach.
In that 25-day period, what are you guys doing? What is your routine like? How are you managing your day?
It's pretty much just at the hospital all the time. We have 3 teenage girls. So there was a lot of, them staying at my parents or my parents staying here with them, or his mom was in town, so she would spend the night at the hospital occasionally. Um, and then if she wasn't spending the night, then I would spend the night. When we got to probably about 3 weeks or so after the stroke, we would go a night or two without staying the night. But not the first few weeks because and they took really, really good care of him. It was just very hard to leave him. So,
Mm.
Yeah, we had really good doctors.
and the nurses
Yeah.
and all the staff, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. They certainly do look like they did a good job because you guys are both here on the podcast talking about it. So let's say, Jamie, are you able to tell us anything about those first few days after the sedation is sort of starting to be decreased and then all the breathing tubes are removed? Are you able to have any memories of that?
Well, when I woke up, it was, now remember, I went in, had the stroke on November 5th. I woke up like December 17th, and I couldn't move my left arm. I could barely move my fingers. I could barely move my left leg. And I was trying to figure out what was going on. Like, I was just, why am I in the hospital? I'm trying to figure out why is everybody here? And I wasn't scared. I was just confused. And then I started to get more and more information from family members. And my son was a little freaked out. He studies up on everything. He gets introduced to something, he finds out everything he can about it. So he was very concerned. And then when I woke up, he was very relieved. So it was a challenge, but not scary. It was just like, what's going on? The
Mm.
confusion.
And how did the family take it, Jessica, when he's awake and he's starting to communicate?
Um, it was a lot of relief. Just to know that he was still in there, and although he still, couldn't talk real well at first because of the trach and everything, he still had a sense of humor. He still was very similar to himself. Our daughter mentioned that when she got to the hospital that first day, that everybody kept telling her that he was going to live. And she said, I kept thinking, oh, well, that's great, but I don't want him to just live. I want him to be my dad. Is he going to be my dad? And so she was very relieved that she could see that, although obviously there has been some changes, that he is still himself.
Yeah, personality wise and
Hmm.
yeah, the way that you go about talking and thinking, etc. Okay, so what is different? We know the left side's been impacted. To what extent is it still impacted?
Well, I don't have full control of my left arm yet, but I can move it quite a bit now. I can walk by myself without a cane, but I take a cane just in case. Um, my mental faculties are there, but every now and then I have a loss for words. Like every now and then, it's just like it's over the tip of my tongue. I just can't think of what it is. And it's usually something dumb like yellow. And
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
I seem to be a little more patient with my kids. I used to be a real hard ass, but I used to be a little more stubborn and demanded more respect, and now it's just like they get away with everything.
Yeah. I wonder why. I've been there. I know what that's like, is to settle, to sort of take the edge off that kind of shitty part of your personality and to just settle it down a little bit, which,
Yeah.
you don't know when you're doing it at the time, but it is, you know, grinds people the wrong way, and it just makes things a little bit uncomfortable and that, and then you realize, okay, maybe I can just settle down and just be a little less dramatic about things.
Yeah.
So it was about 25 days all up in ICU. How long were you in rehab? Did you come home quickly or were you in rehab for an extended amount of time?
Oh, 25 days in ICU, about a month in intermediate care, and then about a month in rehab.
Wow. So isn't it strange? Like that day is supposed to just be a normal day. Everyone wakes up, goes to work, and then like 3 months later, that day still hasn't ended. It's just still
Yeah.
a
Still
weird,
unpacked.
strange thing that's just woken. One day you wake up, and then 3 months later, you're in this completely different place.
Yeah.
How quickly did that time go by, Jessica?
Oh gosh. In some ways, I think it felt like it went by fast because it was just felt like it was just one very long day. I mean, you woke up. It was kind of like Groundhog's Day. You just wake up and you do the same things over and over again. I took a leave from work, and so it was just getting up, go to the hospital. And there was quite a few times where we got thrown off, like after he was in intermediate care, after he got out of the ICU, everything was going better, and then he had a pulmonary embolism. So we had to deal with that, and that was scary. And then once he got to rehab, I think it went faster because you could see the improvement every day.
Uh-huh. So how did that pulmonary embolism come to be?
So when they put him on blood thinners like a few days after his stroke, and then a week or so later they felt like something was wrong, so they did an MRI and he was bleeding where his stroke was, so they took him off the blood thinners, and then he developed a DVT, and that ended up being a pulmonary embolism. It was
Okay.
multiple pulmonary embolisms, they said, but they were ones that were able to just dissolve on their own. So then it was very scary because they basically came in and said, we are worried that if you put him back on the blood thinners that he will bleed. We are worried that if we do not put him back on the blood thinners that he will develop clots because apparently he's prone to clots. So, and there was, I mean, I had teams of doctors in the room talking to me, different teams. And the stroke team said, we think he will be okay on the blood thinners. The hematology team said, we don't want to put him back on the blood thinners. And then they said, you have to make a choice. And that was probably one of the scariest moments of my life, trying to figure out, having somebody else's life basically in your hands, not knowing if you're going to make the right choice. But the stroke doctor convinced me that he really thought we would try the blood thinner, check him for bleeding, and because at this point it had been about a month, almost exactly, since his stroke, and he thought that he was strong enough at that point that the bleeding would stop. That the blood thinner wouldn't cause the bleeding, I should say. So, and that did it. He went back on the blood thinners, and he's been on them ever since. So, and there was no bleeding.
I love that passing of the buck routine there. They're the medical professionals. They've got, probably thousands of years of education and schooling and experience in that space. And they go, you know what? Let's just give it to somebody who doesn't know anything about strokes, embolisms,
Yes.
and all that to make the decision. I mean, come
Yes.
on, guys. I get what they're doing, right? They're just sort of saying, like, you have to guide us. You have to probably do what they're thinking is maybe you're going to do the what is your family member's most likely response going to be? What would they
Right.
want? And they're
Right.
hoping that you guys can guide and advise. That's interesting that they do that they make it your decision. They should be able to just make the decision and then come to you with a suggestion. This is the
Yes.
most likely outcome in this scenario. This is the most likely outcome in that scenario.
Yes.
We are going to go with this. Do you agree with us?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jamie, what's it like when you realize you can't move your left side properly and it's not working? And then, how do your thoughts about the what's going to be necessary to get you back on your feet again? How are you thinking about all of those things?
Well, the initial thought was, man, this sucks. I tried to lift my hand from the bed and put it on my leg, and it just wouldn't move. So it was just a battle of wills, almost a test. If I can just get my hand to rest on my leg, I'll be good to go. So at that point, I started realizing it was just day by day. If I couldn't do it today, I'll do it tomorrow. And now a year and a half later, I'm up and walking for the most part. I walk around the house with no support, and it's just taking time, and it's a struggle, but it is a challenge, but it's worth it.
Mm. What kind of work were you doing before?
Uh, Before the stroke, I was in grocery pricing. I was a pricing manager for grocery, and so I'm the one you blame for all your stuff being too expensive.
Okay, no worries. All right, I know where to send the rage. Okay, so it's an administrative type of job, sitting down at the computer, looking at spreadsheets, all that type of thing. Where are you at with work? Are you in any situation where you're able to go back to work or do work like that?
Well, I had just come away from cancer, and so I was still on. I still had some time left for medical necessities for that. So whenever I had a doctor's appointment or something going on, they would charge it against the FMLA time that I had left. So when I had the stroke, I had a good, strong support team in the office with me, so I wasn't worried about that. And then the stroke and the hospitalization ate up all the FMLA time, and then I was terminated.
Uh-huh. What does FMLA stand for?
Family Medical Leave Act.
Mm.
Okay. And you had a cancer scare. So what was that all about? When did that start?
Uh, what was it, September?
It was in like May of 2022.
Yeah, they found a cancerous node on my lung, and then wound up doing chemotherapy, and they cured it.
Okay. Were you a smoker?
30 years.
Uh-huh. Okay. So I guess you're not a smoker now.
No.
No.
Come on. I can't believe you had to point it to her. She shouldn't be the one who's like smacking you on the head with the wooden spoon to make sure you stop smoking.
Right?
So what you're telling me is that it was one of those things that you did, which is actually quite enjoyable, which you liked doing,
Yeah.
didn't bother you doing it,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I know that feeling because I enjoyed smoking too when I was smoking. And of course, no one had to make me stop after the first brain hemorrhage. I just stopped. But I know what you're saying. I mean, it's not that you're being forced to stop. It's that you've
Right.
finally become aware of how bad it can be.
Well, I know it's bad. I know it helped cause it, but right now I'm jonesing for a cigar.
Well, you're not
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about your uh voice. It sounds like it's a little bit labored. Is that as a result of the trachs? Why does that sound like that? And is it very different from what it used to be?
Yes, it's different, but it's not so much forced. It's just I'm getting used to it, and it's this the muscles are growing back and getting stronger.
Uh-huh.
So I'm getting back in shape as far as that goes. For a while, when I woke up, I couldn't speak at all. I had a trach in my throat. I did sign language and communicated with writing stuff on paper, and I couldn't even drink soda. Uh, I had a hard time swallowing. So if I had a cheeseburger or something, I had a chance of choking. So all of that's been gradually getting better. And now I'm having a soda. I open my own cans and drink away now. I graduated speech therapy. Um, I did all the speech practices they had for me, and I just kept working on it. It's my voice is getting better. It's much better than it was back in the day, but
Mhm.
it's nowhere near what it was prior to stroke.
I hear.
He he couldn't swallow for well from ICU up until like probably the middle of rehab. So 2.5 months, he was on a feeding tube and couldn't swallow. Then they did testing and everything, and they put him on. By the time he left the hospital, he was on a solid food diet, normal food
Bite
diet.
size.
Yeah, normal food diet, but he had to have all of his drinks thickened, and he had to have all of his drinks thickened up until September of 2023, and that's when he was able to start drinking normal liquids.
Mm, okay. So it's been a gradual improvement, slow but gradual, and then eventually you've achieved some decent outcomes. Um, do we know why the blood clots occurred? Like, what is the underlying cause if he's susceptible to them? Why is it? Do we know?
They don't really know. He didn't have he had a spleen removed when he was like 7, and they told me in the hospital they went back and forth for a long time trying to find a cause, and they finally thought that maybe because he had his spleen removed because his blood cells are kind of an odd shape, and the spleen would eat them up and it would make it enlarged. And they finally decided that maybe the disease he has that makes them that odd shape might also, it's very rare though, because they don't know a lot about it, would also possibly make them sticky and sometimes cause clotting. That coupled with the chemo, because he had just finished chemo in August. And after he finished chemo, he had so much swelling. Um, in fact, he had a doctor's appointment. Gosh, like he had his stroke on a Sunday. He had the doctor's appointment like on a Thursday for the swelling. And she had a CT scan done, and she sent him a message on his Follow My Health that I received while he was in the hospital on his app, that the CT scan looked good and he was okay to just continue what he was doing. And I sent her a message back and I was like, well, he had a massive stroke and he's in the hospital in ICU. So I don't know, but it didn't seem like it went that well. So yeah, so
Poor doctor. I mean, she would have been
yeah.
beside herself thinking, what? Well, how might I
Yeah,
respond to that?
right.
Yeah. But she, as far as she was concerned, everything else went to plan and
Yes.
worked. Yeah.
And at least he did have that doctor's appointment where we know that there wasn't something we should have done differently, like, oh, if you had just seen a doctor before this happened, at least we know that we did, well.
Yeah. Somebody's getting tired.
His
Yeah.
legs are starting to hurt a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got everything's sort of going well, making a lot of progress, worked out a lot of things, resolved a lot of issues. You're 49 when it happens. When was your 50th?
Uh, I got released from the hospital in, what was it, February?
Mm-hmm.
And my birthday was in June,
Mm-hmm.
June the what?
June 19.
Ah, I'm June the 8th.
Oh, good
And,
month.
and I'll be 50 this year.
Oh,
How good was it to get to 50?
well, it was very enjoyable. I had a lot of friends over and we had a big party, and I was stuck in a wheelchair at that time, but it was a very fun event.
Yeah. So what's it like now for you, Jessica? Have you been able to get back to work? Is everything kind of settled down with
Yes.
that side of it?
Yes, I'm back to work. He still needs 24/7 um basically more of a supervision than a care, but a 24/7 supervision, because he is still he's still a choking risk. Sometimes he still chokes. So someone has to watch him when he's eating. And then he's also still a bit of a fall risk. So someone has to be here 24/7. So my parents come during the workday when I'm working, and stay with him. So
Wow. He's high maintenance.
yeah.
Jamie, what's the deal, mate? How long is it going to be before do you feel like, I know you're improving and you've hit all these milestones. How long do you feel before, and this is not a goal that you have to set and hit. I'm just
Yeah.
sort of seeing where you're at with it. How long do you feel before you can be fully independent and you don't need the babysitting, so to speak?
Well, everything is going according to plan so far,
Mm.
but I don't know. It's just, I still can't walk
Mhm.
very well. I still have problems with my left arm. I still have stuff I'm working on, but I was told that While I was in the hospital, I was told that for every day that you're in the hospital, imagine 3 days of recovery. So, according to that, everything went fine. By about the time my 3 days of recovery for every day I was in the hospital was up, I was about 9 months, 10 months. I was doing much better. Um, I still think I've got probably a year to go before I can get back to work and start being quote unquote normal again.
Yeah, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Okay, it was a trick question. I mean, I knew there wasn't really going to be a solid answer, but there's a reason for that because there's a lot of people listening who will have kind of deadlines set on, I need to get back by this day, or this is
Mhm.
definitely the day, or whatever. And usually what happens is recovery doesn't go like that and it takes a bit longer.
Right.
Sometimes it could take less, but it might take a bit longer than what we want it to. And people get disheartened. They feel a little bit kind of, like, oh man, I'm going to be here all the time. And, they might start thinking like that. You seem to be taking it all in your stride. Are, y- are you kind of, have you always been chill like that? It seems like you're very relaxed and chilled about it. Jessica's shaking her head. You're nodding your head. So somewhere in between is the truth.
Yeah.
How have you responded to adversity in the past?
Um, usually I'm like I'm like a crisis manager. I see the crisis and I attack it head on, whether it be strategically or forcefully or just whatever's going to get me through it. Nowadays, like I said, it's day by day. If I can't do it today, just wait till tomorrow and try again.
Mm.
The 3 days per recovery, 3 days of recovery for every day, that is more of a benchmark than anything. Just look at, I want to be better by this time. And then you look at your progress up to that point, and you can push yourself to do better. And then you know where you're at and how much you got to work to get further. Me, I know I'm not ready to be on my own.
Mm.
I know I need people to help me. I know I need people to watch me. That's okay. I I go to the gym 3 times a week. I walk on the track at the gym 3 times a week. And when I say I walk in the gym, I'm carrying my cane, not using it, not holding on to the guide rails, just have it there right next to me as just in case. And I push myself to go for a mile, and I think it's working out well.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
then
Sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're going really well. So you've basically just sort of focusing on the improvements that are happening rather
Yeah,
than how much improvement you want to see by a certain day.
right. Am I doing better than I did yesterday? Yes. Okay, I'm on the right track. Am I
Yeah.
doing better than I did yesterday? No, I need to work harder. That's all about day by day. What can I do today? How much can I push it for tomorrow? Where do I see that little bit of improvement? And that little bit of improvement every day will add up. I started doing a row machine that uses just the arms, and I started at 90 pounds. That's pretty good. I'm now up to 125, and it's every day. Every time I go and try it, I add 5 pounds. If it's too much, that's okay. I work with what I'm used to, and I just keep working it, just keep trying to do better.
So you're getting stronger, you're getting
Yeah,
more resilient, you're able to get through more effort. Are you noticing fatigue? Does that set in? Does that cause a little bit of uh, a back step?
Um, I don't really see it as a challenge. It doesn't affect me as much. One thing that I've heard from a lot of people, doctors, patients, everybody, is that they have a lot of pain or very tired. I got lucky. I don't notice it. I'm not in pain. I'm not tired unless I push myself. But I'm just very lucky where I'm at right now.
Okay. You're looking for ways to improve all the time, yeah?
Yes.
And you're making big progress and you're overcoming things. And in our conversation, I noticed something that you're doing that's interfering with your recovery. Do you want
What's
to know?
that?
You want to know?
Please share.
Drinking sodas.
Okay.
If you
Well,
stop that,
in
if
my
you
defense, it's sugar free.
even then, even then, even then,
Well, I started out when I was young drinking Mellow Yellow. I then moved on to Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew has like 75 grams of sugar per whatever, and it was ridiculous. I changed from that to Pepsi, as I cut down quite a bit more. I've since I've been able to drink soda again, I dropped down to zero sugar. I'm starting to lose weight, but it's really not helping a whole lot. But it tastes good.
yeah, I know. It's always about the taste. That's the only thing that I could say to you. You know, that's something that's not going to cost you extra. It's going to make a massive difference to your bloods. Instead of drinking a soda, if you drink a water or a s-
Oh, yeah,
or a bubbly water like a mineral water or a soda water, you know,
right.
the flavor's different. Squeeze some lemon in there, squeeze some orange in there, anything just to get you that feeling, that sensation of uh
Yeah,
you're doing that you're doing something similar. That will definitely help. It's just there's too many chemicals in those diet ones, and they
right.
don't have a positive impact. They may have a negative impact, but they certainly don't have a positive impact. Whereas drinking water is going to have a positive impact, help thin your blood
Yeah.
naturally, and it'll just take out some extra stuff that your blood doesn't need to have. Um, so anyway, that's my 10 cents worth. That's your nutritional advice for the day.
That's quite all right. Jess has been trying to get me to drink more water for years.
Uh,
No
we,
luck.
yeah, well, if it helps, you know what you do is you get a water filter. You filter out all the stuff that you don't like in the flavor of water from the tap, and then you just add, like I said, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of lemon or orange or lime or anything in there just to help you make it taste
Right.
less water, boring. I don't know whatever it is. It's really the most important thing because you can't extract, with blood cells that are differently shaped,
Yes.
they need water. They need to be hydrated in a different way. They don't need to be hydrated by um, beer or sodas or anything like that. They really need they really need water, and um, and especially since you're still not active, very active, and that you need to help your blood circulate as much as possible, so that you don't develop DVTs, deep vein thrombosis, or any of that stuff from sitting down, because I know that there's a risk, of sitting down a little bit too much, especially when we've been unwell after a stroke. So just consider it, and maybe cut down from whatever you're drinking now to half of that, and then see if you can
Mhm.
make your water taste a little better, and then go from there. And you've also been through cancer. You want to give your body the best opportunity to repair
Yeah.
itself and heal itself. And Jessica, he's very high maintenance, like we said, but he's Also needs a lot of attention by the sound of it. He's doing all this stuff, getting attention.
Yes.
My God. Is there any opportunity for anyone else in that house to get a little bit of love?
Right? So we're saying.
How are the girls been? Because I know teenagers can be completely annoying at teenage stage. I had teenagers when I was unwell, and they were just a pain as they were meant to be, and it didn't make it
Right?
easier. But I was also able to just chill out and say, look, they're just being normal, and they
Right.
won't understand, and I shouldn't expect them to understand. But I used to get a little bit upset when they were a bit too loud, and I had to tell them multiple times, or when they wouldn't help out around the house and I needed help. Because my wife went back to work. So if they were around and causing a mess or creating creating, a nightmare in the kitchen, I needed them to really be on top of sorting out their own stuff, and sometimes they wouldn't. How are the
Yeah.
girls responding during this time?
They've responded pretty well. Definitely there's that. There's, messes and things like that. But for the most part they've been very helpful, don't you think?
They have. They're I've got two 15-year-old twins who are very helpful. They still complain when we ask them to do something, but they get it done. They they're trying to be as helpful as possible with me. And then my 18-year-old daughter is still living at home while she's in high school, and she's studying EMT right now, and she's wanting to be a physical therapist. So she's got a lot out of this negative experience.
Hmm. Yes.
Did she want to be a physical therapist beforehand, or did it sort of start to give her some idea of what a good career might look like?
No, I don't think she had any idea. I mean, she was kind of considering medical field of some sort, but I don't think she had any idea about therapy really at all until she saw it all firsthand. I mean, he had, gosh, like 5 months in home therapy when he got home. And when he got home, he was in a wheelchair and could only transfer with the sliding board. And we had all those therapists in all the time, and she got to see all that firsthand. And I think that made a huge difference.
You would have put
Yes.
your life on hold, Jessica. How's that been now? Have you been able to sort of transition back to a regular routine? Do you feel comfortable being not around as much? What's that like on your mindset?
Gosh, that's a good question. Yeah, I think definitely getting, back to work normally and all that is helpful. Um and we've been able to get on a fairly good routine. I mean, it helps that his personality is really easygoing and things like that, and we don't have, a lot of issues. I know sometimes that stroke hits a rough part of the brain, and sometimes people get kind of short tempered and things, and that didn't really happen. So uh yeah, I think we've gotten back to a pretty normal routine.
Yeah. And what does that look like for you? Work in the morning? How does that go?
I go to work at 9. My parents usually get here about 8:45 in the morning. I actually only work a block and a half away. So I go to work, and then I come home for lunch at noon, and I have an hour lunch, and then I go back to work, and I come home at 4. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's perfect, really.
And do mum and dad live close by?
They live about half an hour away.
Okay. And are they retired?
They are. Hmm.
How good are the in-laws? You probably never expected them to come and be your babysitter.
No, they're very good. They're very attentive. They take care of me. They've
They get you to the gym.
they give me to the gym. They took care of me when I couldn't take care of myself. when I got home, I was incontinent and had other problems, and they were there still to help me get dressed, help me change clothes, help me just everything. They've been very good people.
That's one son-in-law that can't say a negative or bad word about your father.
Yeah.
You are not allowed, my friend. You cannot say anything. That
Very
is
true.
so good. It's so good that you guys have got um that ability to have your family close by and be surrounded by them. It's one of the benefits. That's what we had. My brother lives 10 minutes one direction. My parents live 10 minutes the other direction.
Right.
My sister-in-laws, everyone's kind of within 10 minutes of each other. So every time we
Right.
needed something, all we had to do was reach out, or people were
That's
dropping by
good.
all the time and helping out. And it's just such a benefit. Every once in a while you hear people and being nearly 50, people ask me like, where else have you lived? And I'm like, I haven't lived anywhere else. Um, I moved 3 kilometers away from my original home to my current home, and that's what I've done my whole time. And same with my family. No one's moved anywhere. Everyone's sort of stayed nearby to where they grew up, and our families. And it's just been it's been a blessing because we don't have those villages anymore. I barely know my neighbors. I've been here for 20
Right.
years. They switch in and out, so you don't often get to meet everybody and create a
Mhm.
relationship with them. So even though I do feel like I could go to a neighbor and say, "Hey, can you help out with something for a minute?" I know that I would probably get that help, but I didn't need to because everyone else was around me. And I know a lot of
Yeah.
stroke survivors don't have that benefit, but
Yeah.
it says something about finding a place and putting your roots down and then just sort of staying there and then getting to know the community. In my local cafe, for example, when I go there, I know everybody and they know me. And they would even be the type of people who would help. I remember during lockdown in Melbourne, in Australia, we had the worst lockdown in the world
Mhm.
during COVID. We weren't allowed to leave the house if we thought that we had uh, the cold, the COVID or whatever.
Right.
And in order to do the right thing and make sure that they were able to keep their cafe open and keep it running, keep serving the community, if we thought we had COVID, all we had to do was send them an SMS and say, "Hey, can you bring us 4 coffees, some croissants, etc."
That's
And they
great.
would walk the 700 meters down the road and they would bring it to us. So there are a few people like that, but with our family, we were able to rely on them for everything. And
Yeah.
I got driven around and I got all those favors done. And it takes one of those layers of the difficulty of stroke, like it sort of just takes it away, gets rid
Yeah.
of it. Were you both insured? Did you guys have health insurance at the time when you went through the cancer and the stroke?
Yes.
Good.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I had insurance through my work, and it was a really good insurance.
It was.
So they covered the cancer very well. But when I had a stroke, they wound up coming in very handy, and we're thankful very much we had it. And we actually got what was it, 10,000 for.
We got a critical care policy, so that helped out a lot. Where he had a critical care policy on his insurance. So
I hear a lot about insurance where it's supplied through the employer, and often
Yeah.
when people become made um, unemployed, they their insurance lapses. Is it too expensive to buy insurance just on your own and have your own insurance policy? Do people do that?
Yeah, you can. You can find a cheap, inexpensive policy that's just like $10 a month. But the ones offered through work, you don't have to shop around, and it's taken out of your paycheck, so it's easier.
and a lot of the cheaper policies aren't going to cover, but you're gonna if you have an emergency like this, you're going to be in trouble because they're not going to cover it very well. Now when his its employment was terminated, then we had to do what's called Cobra. So you have your insurance, but you have to pay. You're paying it yourself, so you're paying your employer's part of it as well, and it's extremely expensive. But we did keep that for about 6 months, even though it was about $1,000 a month. Um, but we kept that for about 6 months because it pretty much covered everything, and we would have been able to get onto a state insurance policy, which is what we ended up doing, but the state wouldn't have covered for the home health care that he had. So we kept it until he went to outpatient therapy, and then we were able to switch to the state and not have to pay anything. So
Do those work policies cover the family as well for other medical conditions, or is it just the person who's employed?
in our case, you can get it so that they cover the whole family. In our case, we did not do that. We had a different policy through the government for the family because it would have cost quite a bit more. So his his policy by himself was just $200 a month while he was employed there. So
Okay. So you had the benefit of coming out of hospital and not a massive bill that some of the
Yeah.
your other
yes,
American stroke survivors talk about, that ridiculous thing
yes,
that they do to people after they're unwell and not able to work. They go home with a six-figure
yeah,
bill. It's ridiculous.
yes, it
Um,
is.
so what's it like now being able to, I imagine Jamie's still not receiving any income. It's been a bit of a juggled. Is it changed the way that you guys have to go about living your life's expenses? Everything's going up. How's that?
Yes. He's on disability now, so he does get some income through that, but it is a quite a bit less than what he got when he was working. So yes, we have had to like cut down on some expenses and just change the way we spend.
Mm, yeah, we were the same. I mean, my wife was working 3 times a week when I wasn't able to work, and I haven't really been able to work properly for 10 years
Hmm.
because of all of the stuff that I had to go through and then to get back to work and then COVID lockdowns and all that type of thing. So it's definitely a massive adjustment. Um, we're not going without anything, but it's
Right.
still being super cautious of over committing to something that we don't 100% need, or we could do
Hmm.
without. It's interesting. Stroke takes a lot of time for things to settle down and get into routine, and then for some people that routine often then doesn't involve employment. So
Right.
it's a very different experience to what they were used to previously.
Hmm.
So what's next for you guys? Where to from here? Your Jamie, what are you thinking? I know you gave yourself a bit of about a year or so, but what else is on your mind? What else would you like to accomplish and achieve?
Well, physically, as far as physical therapy, I had certain goals that I was trying to meet, and I wound up meeting them. One of my goals was to climb stairs, like going into a friend's basement, and I actually made that goal possible, and have been able to do it. So because of that, I go and hang out with a friend every week. So my son comes over, picks me up, and then we drive to a friend's house, just hang out for a couple hours. And it's feeling like I'm getting back to normal. As far as about a year from now, I'm dying to get back to work. I just want to get out of the house, away from Netflix, and just do something. I want to go back to stockings, back to a mind numbing, no thinking job. So that's what I want to do. That's my
Yeah.
next goal.
That's a good one. I went to for about 3 years, I went back to a mind numbing, no thinking job as well. Basically, everyone
Yeah,
had it all sorted for me. Do this. Once you've done
yeah,
that, let me know and do this. And it's like,
yes,
oh man, that was so good for a little while. Until then, eventually I realized I had recovered enough and I was beyond that, because then it was mind numbing was annoying me. And it was,
yeah,
and I was complaining because it was mind numbing. Oh, this is boring. And
yeah,
but it took about 3 years to get there. And into having somewhere to go and interacting with people was really good, especially on a regular basis in an office, that type
right,
of thing.
yes.
That was really good. What about you, Jessica?
I just see him keep getting better. I think I'd like to I'd like to see him be able to drive at some point. I don't know if that's in the cards, but it'd be something that I think would just be important for him. Um but I mean, I to be honest, I never imagined we would be here. It was too hard for me to see beyond where we were at the time to see that this was possible. So I'm just ecstatic about where we're at.
Yeah. Normally, I don't ask caregivers, because very rarely on my podcast, I don't ask them this question, but I'm going to ask you both the same question, see if you can give me your version of the answer. So, Jessica, what's the hardest thing about stroke for you as a caregiver?
Mm. I think the hardest thing for so long was that I felt alone. Just he wasn't the same. He wasn't able to, make decisions. We were always a team, and we always made all of our decisions together. And having to make all the decisions without him really being able to help was very difficult. That has gotten a lot better. It's still not 100%, but it's a lot closer to what it was. So
Yeah. Jamie, what's the hardest thing about stroke?
Well, I think it's the fact that everything changes. 1 minute I'm perfectly fine and everything's going good. I'm walking like normal, talking like normal, playing video games like normal. And then the next day, I can't do any of it. So it's just that gradual getting back to how it was before the stroke. That's the hardest. Just having to deal with the quote unquote disability that I have. I'm not disabled, but I I I can't move my arm. I can't move my leg. I can't think right. Just getting back to how I was. It sucks.
Hmm. Hmm. Jessica, what is something that you've learnt because of this stroke journey?
oh, I I think one of the things that I've learned is gentleness. I mean, I'd like to think that I've always been a very kind person, but I haven't always been the most gentle person. Uh, and I think that's really what I've learned the most is how important it is and how not important some of the things that I used to think were important were.
Old habits die fast, though, don't they?
Mhm.
Die hard, die hard. I mean, I'm, I had all of those awarenesses about stuff, and it's like, all right, you're being ridiculous again. You're complaining about something you shouldn't be complaining again. But you just
Right.
you find yourself there. You're human, right? And you're still a married
Right.
couple, and you still
Absolutely.
have the same dramas. And even though you
Right.
promised, I swear, once everything gets back to normal, I'm never going to argue.
Right. I
You
still
always
have
go
to.
back there. You always go back there sometimes. But it's all right. I've learned that you can go there and then just become aware of it really quickly and then go, okay, out of there, get out of there.
Yes.
What about you, Jamie? What's something that you've learned because of stroke?
Probably taking it day by day instead of planning for a future. Just get through the day you're in. Whatever challenges come up, take them on a day at a time. Whatever you can, whatever you can do, plan the next step. Just one step at a time, and don't be a pessimist. Just keep going. I can't do it right now. That's okay. Maybe tomorrow I can. And then just keep going. Just keep working harder. So day by day.
Yeah. Jessica, what's something that you would like to tell perhaps another caregiver who might be listening to this, like a little bit of wisdom or some advice or something that might help them in their journey, especially if they're just starting theirs?
Um, ask for help. You feel like you're going to be a burden on somebody, but people do want to help. They just don't know what to do. So if a dinner would really help, just ask someone to bring you a dinner. If you can't possibly think about food, then that's something. Just ask for what you really need because people they want to give it to you. They just don't know what to do, so they just sometimes don't do anything.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And not doing anything looks like they're being not nice or they're being
Right.
insensitive, but it's not really that. It says they really don't know how to do it.
They're just not sure.
Yeah. And then I suppose the only other piece of advice I could offer with regards to asking for help and specifically dinner is make sure you ask somebody for dinner who can actually cook properly.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Be a bit picky with who you're going to ask for dinner from. What about you, Jamie? What do you want to tell other stroke survivors who have maybe just got out of hospital, just got home, and sort of getting used to things the way that they now are instead of the way that they were? What's a little bit of advice?
Probably the same thing. Ask for help. You just got out of the hospital. You had a life changing event. You cannot do what you used to do, and that's okay. You're going to need help walking. You're going to need help getting up. You're going to need help reaching for this. Day by day, it'll get easier. Day by day, you'll get better. But right now, you need help. That's what Jesse's there for. She's there to help. So your wife, your husband, your caregiver, whoever it is, tell them what you need. Be honest with them. Don't rely on yourself as much. You're not going to be able to do it yet. And it's always a yet. You will be able to take care of yourself, but not right now. Ask for help.
It sounds like you've written part of the first chapter of my book because that whole attitude of I can't do this yet is in my book exactly what you said. And
Wow.
Good.
adding that word into a sentence makes a massive difference
Yes, it
because
does.
what it does is tell the brain that I'm not doing it now, but I might be able to do it in the future. And that kind of takes some of the anxiety and the stress off of
Right.
the fact that you've lost that function for now. So that's really good advice. Hey guys, I really appreciate you reaching out and asking to be on the show. Thank you so much for doing that. It's lovely to meet you. I really appreciate you sharing your combined journey because stroke's never alone. It's,
Right.
stroke survivor never does it on their own. There's always other people around who are also going through their own stroke journey with their loved one. And I really wish you well. And I hope that in 12 months, there's been improvement again.
Yeah, thank you. We
Thank you.
appreciate you being on your show.
Well, thanks for being here with us and joining us in today's episode. I do hope that you got a few gems from the conversation. If you're interested in learning more about stroke recovery, make sure to check out my book available at recoveryafterstroke.com/book. For additional insights into our guest stories and access to resources like their social media links and interview transcripts, visit recoveryafterstroke.com/episodes. A big thank you to everyone who has already left a review. Your feedback is incredibly important in helping others on their recovery journey. If you haven't yet, consider leaving a review on iTunes or Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment, like the episode, and subscribe for more content. To all stroke survivors out there, if you want to share your story and inspire others, we'd love to have you on the show. No need to prepare anything, just come as you are. And if you have a product or a service that supports stroke survivors, let's explore the opportunity for a sponsored episode of the show. Reach out to me via recoveryafterstroke.com/contact for more details. Once again, thank you for your support. Looking forward to connecting with you on our next episode.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.